just witnessed something wild. Iran made a decision that sent shockwaves across the globe. They fired ballistic missiles directly at the most significant American military base in the region. What makes this story even more fascinating is that despite the dramatic nature of the attack, something unexpected occurred. Every single Iranian missile was shot down before it could hit anything. Did their missiles fail because American defenses are simply that good? Or because Iran's much-feared arsenal isn't as dangerous as they've been claiming for years? Join us as we break down what really happened between Iran, the United States, and how the attack unfolded. When Iran launched a massive missile strike against Al Udeid Air Base, the biggest U.S. military facility in the Middle East, Iranian forces called it Operation Glad Tidings of Victory, sending dozens of ballistic missiles screaming toward the base in a coordinated assault that changed everything. This was not a minor border clash or proxy conflict. Iran had just fired directly at American forces, marking the most serious escalation between these two powers in decades. The attack came after recent U.S. airstrikes hammered Iranian nuclear sites, and now Tehran was hitting back hard. Al Udeid sits in one of the most critical spots on the global chessboard. The base hosts thousands of American troops and serves as a command center for operations across the region. When those missiles started falling, it sent shock waves far beyond the Middle East. The Iranian strike is bigger than just retaliation. It's a direct challenge to American military dominance in a region where both countries have been circling each other for years. What started as targeted strikes against nuclear facilities has now exploded into a direct military confrontation that could reshape the entire Middle East. Somewhere between 6 and 19 missiles tore through the night sky, heading straight for the base. The sight alone was enough to make anyone's heart stop. Dozens of incoming warheads that could have turned the facility into rubble and unalived hundreds of people. But then something incredible happened. Every single missile got knocked out of the sky. American air defense systems went to work, tracking each incoming threat and taking them down one by one. When the smoke cleared, the results were almost unbelievable. 0 casualties, 0 damage, and the base kept running like nothing happened. It was a flawless defensive performance that left military analysts scratching their heads. The big question everyone started asking was whether Iran actually wanted to hit anything at all. Some experts think the whole thing was more about sending a message than causing real destruction. Maybe Iran picked targets they knew would be heavily defended, or maybe they gave a warning through back channels. Either way, the attack failed if the goal was to hurt American forces or knock out the base. But if the goal was to show they could reach U.S. targets without starting World War III, then maybe it worked exactly as planned. But other experts see this completely differently. They think Iran seriously miscalculated and ended up looking weak instead of strong. Their missiles, which they've been bragging about for years, got swatted down like flies. If the goal was to project power, this backfired spectacularly. The attack definitely got everyone's attention across the Middle East. Countries in the region are watching closely to see how this plays out. But whether Iran looks more dangerous or more incompetent depends entirely on what they were actually trying to accomplish. Right now, nobody knows for sure if this was brilliant strategic messaging or a massive blunder that exposed serious weaknesses in Iran's military capabilities. The answer to that question could reshape how other countries view Iran's threats going forward. The American defense systems lit up the desert night like the 4th of July. Interceptor missiles launched one after another, tracking down every incoming threat and blowing them apart before they could hit anything. From miles away, it probably looked like some kind of fireworks show. Bright flashes and explosions scattered across the dark sky above Al Udeid. But down on the ground, everything stayed perfectly normal. No bomb craters appeared in the sand. The medical teams had nothing to do. Nobody got hurt, nothing got damaged, and life at the base went on like any other night. That is when military analysts started connecting the dots. This was not really an attack meant to destroy anything. Iran basically put on a show, launching enough missiles to make headlines, but doing it in a way that guaranteed they wouldn't actually hit their targets. Iran gets to say they retaliated against American forces, but nobody passed and nothing got destroyed. No dead soldiers means no pressure for massive retaliation. No damaged infrastructure means the conflict doesn't spiral completely out of control. It was like a perfectly choreographed dance where both sides knew the steps. Iran gets to look tough for their domestic audience, America gets to showcase their defense systems, and somehow nobody ends up starting World War III over it. This issue started after Operation Midnight Hammer with the American airstrikes that took out 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Iran had to respond somehow, but here's where it gets interesting. They basically told everyone exactly what they were planning to do. Intelligence sources later confirmed that Iran quietly tipped off both Qatar and the United States before launching those missiles. They gave a warning about the timing, the targets, everything. That's like calling someone to tell them exactly when and where a surprise party is happening. It defeats the entire purpose. Military strikes work because of surprise. Catch the enemy off guard, hit them before they can react, cause maximum damage with minimal warning. But Iran threw all of that out the window. They made sure American forces had plenty of time to get ready, activate all their defenses, and prepare for exactly what was coming. Once the Americans knew the missiles were coming, the whole thing turned into a completely different kind of event. Instead of a real military attack, it became more like a rehearsal where both sides knew their roles. Iran got to fire missiles and claim they hit back, while America got to show off how well its defense systems work. When both sides know exactly what's going to happen, it stops being warfare and starts being political theater. Iran needed to respond to those nuclear facility strikes, but they found a way to do it without actually starting a real war. President Trump didn't hold back when he addressed the nation about the missile attack. He basically called the whole thing a joke, describing it as a staged play instead of any kind of serious military action. Trump even sarcastically thanked Iran for giving everyone a heads up before launching their missiles. His mockery didn't stop there. Trump suggested that if this was Iran's idea of retaliation, maybe their military commanders needed to go back to school and learn how warfare actually works. The president's tone was completely dismissive, treating the entire incident like some kind of amateur hour performance. The numbers backed up Trump's ridicule. 0 missiles hit their targets, 0 damage to American equipment or facilities, 0 injuries to any personnel. The base kept running its normal operations the entire time, like nothing had even happened. From Trump's perspective, Iran had just handed him a perfect propaganda victory. They launched what sounded like a major attack, but accomplished absolutely nothing. Instead of looking strong and dangerous, Iran ended up looking incompetent and weak on the world stage. This missile attack might not have damaged any buildings or hurt anyone, but it hit something else that could be even more important: America's reputation for being tough when threatened. Here is the problem. When Iran can fire missiles at the biggest U.S. military base in the Middle East, and basically nothing happens to them in return, other countries take notice. Every time America lets something like this slide without hitting back hard, it makes the next attack more likely to happen. North Korea is definitely watching the situation. So is Russia, China too. These countries are all testing boundaries with America in different ways, and they're paying close attention to how each provocation gets handled. If firing missiles at American bases doesn't trigger serious consequences, what's to stop someone from trying something bigger next time? It is like dealing with bullies. Once they realize they can push someone around without getting punched back, they keep pushing harder. The same logic applies to hostile nations. Each successful provocation that goes unanswered makes the next escalation seem more reasonable and less risky. The missiles themselves didn't destroy anything tangible at Al Udeid Air Base, but they might have chipped away at something much more valuable: the fear that keeps America's enemies from taking bigger risks. When deterrence starts breaking down, that's when things can get really dangerous, really fast. Washington's slow reaction to the missile strike basically advertised American weakness to the entire world. When hostile countries see America taking time to think things over instead of hitting back immediately, it changes their calculations about what they can get away with. The math is pretty simple from their perspective. If America hesitates after getting attacked directly, maybe it'll hesitate again next time. Maybe they'll hesitate when something even bigger happens. That kind of thinking makes dangerous countries more willing to roll the dice and see what happens. This creates a snowball effect that keeps getting worse. Iran fires missiles and nothing major happens to them. North Korea sees this and thinks maybe they can get away with something too. Russia notices the pattern and decides to push a little harder somewhere else. Each time America doesn't respond with overwhelming force, The next country in line feels more confident about testing boundaries. The problem isn't just about Iran anymore. It's about every hostile nation watching how America handles direct attacks on its military. When enemies start believing America will talk instead of fight, they stop being afraid of American power. This cycle keeps feeding itself until someone finally pushes too far and forces a massive response. But by then, the damage to American credibility had already spread across multiple conflicts and regions. The world becomes less stable because everyone thinks America won't defend its red lines anymore. While Iran hoped to project strength through its missile demonstration, regional neighbors interpreted the attack very differently and responded with alarm rather than admiration. Qatar, which hosts Al Udeid Air Base and thousands of American troops, immediately condemned the strike as a violation of its sovereignty, since the attack essentially turned Qatari territory into a battleground without permission. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain quickly closed portions of their airspace and elevated their military alert levels, showing how Iran's actions had created fear rather than respect among the very countries it hoped to influence. The stock markets told the real story about Iran's missile attack better than any news report could. Oil prices barely budged when those missiles started flying, which is pretty incredible when it happens near the biggest American military base in the Middle East. Anytime missiles start flying around oil-producing regions, traders panic and energy prices shoot through the roof. Everyone assumes supply chains will get disrupted and conflicts will spread. That's been the pattern for decades. But this time was completely different. Oil prices actually dropped a little bit right after the attack, then just settled back to normal levels. Iran's missile strike backfired diplomatically, pushing away potential allies instead of rallying support for its cause. Diplomats from Jordan, Egypt, and Turkey privately expressed concerns about Iran's reckless decision-making, viewing the attack as a risky move that delivered no meaningful gains. This shift in regional perception creates a dangerous cycle for Iran, as growing isolation forces the country to rely more heavily on military demonstrations to project power, which only highlights its weaknesses further. The choice of target revealed a major tactical error that undermined Iran's entire operation. Al Udeid Air Base represents the most heavily defended United States installation in the Middle East, equipped with advanced radar systems and multiple layers of air defense technology. By targeting such a well-protected facility, Iran essentially guaranteed that its missiles would be intercepted, turning what should have been a show of strength into a demonstration of military inadequacy. The complete failure of the strike exposed serious flaws in Iran's missile capabilities and targeting systems. Every single missile was intercepted before reaching its target, resulting in zero destruction, zero injuries, and zero disruption to American military operations. For a country that wants recognition as a regional power, this kind of public failure damages credibility more than any diplomatic setback could. The attack raised questions across Europe and the Gulf states about Iran's actual military capabilities, rather than inspiring fear or respect. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers handled the entire operation. These aircraft were the only ones that could carry bombs big enough to punch through Iran's buried nuclear sites and actually destroy them. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed that the B-2s flew deep into Iranian territory and made it back without anyone detecting them. According to Hegseth, this was the longest B-2 mission since 2001 and the biggest B-2 strike ever conducted. The choice of aircraft made perfect sense. Iran had built these nuclear facilities underground specifically to protect them from regular bombing runs. Standard fighter jets simply don't carry the kind of massive bunker-buster bombs needed to crack through all that concrete and steel. Only the B-2 could handle this kind of mission. These stealth bombers can fly thousands of miles without being seen on radar, carry enormous payloads, and hit targets that other aircraft can't even reach. The fact that they completed such a long-range mission into heavily defended airspace and came home undetected shows exactly why America spent so much money developing these planes. The Northrop B-2 Spirit represents one of the most advanced military aircraft ever built. This American heavy strategic bomber uses something called low observable stealth technology, which basically means it can slip past even the most sophisticated enemy air defenses without being detected. Think of it like an invisibility cloak for aircraft. Enemy radar systems simply cannot see it coming. Most people know it simply as the stealth bomber, and it has become the go-to aircraft when America needs to strike targets that other planes could never reach. When it comes to firepower, the B-2 Spirit can carry an impressive arsenal of conventional weapons. These include standard Mark 82 and Mark 84 bombs, CBU-87 combined effects munitions, Gator mines, and the CBU-97 sensor-fused weapon. But the real game changer is its ability to carry the massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound bomb designed specifically to destroy heavily reinforced underground bunkers. The B-2 can carry up to 2 of these massive weapons, 1 in each bomb bay, and as of 2012, it remains the only aircraft capable of deploying this devastating munition. The aircraft also features cutting-edge technology that makes it incredibly effective in combat situations. The low probability of intercept AN/APQ-181 multi-mode radar works as part of a sophisticated digital navigation system. This system includes terrain-following radar and global positioning system guidance, along with the NAS-26 astro-inertial navigation system that was originally developed in the 1950s. All of these technologies work together to help the aircraft navigate precisely to its targets while avoiding detection. Perhaps most importantly, the B-2 includes a defensive management system that constantly monitors for potential threats during missions. This system can automatically assess how dangerous different enemy defenses might be and recommend the safest routes to avoid them. Recent upgrades have made this system even more capable of detecting radar emissions from air defense systems and then feeding that information to an auto-router that can change the flight path in real time. This means the aircraft can automatically adjust its route to stay as safe as possible while completing its mission. Flying the B-2 Spirit is nothing like piloting a regular aircraft because of its unique flying wing design. This shape makes the plane naturally unstable in the air, similar to trying to balance a paper airplane that wants to tumble in every direction. To solve this problem, the B-2 uses an incredibly sophisticated quadruplex, computer-controlled, fly-by-wire flight control system. This means that computers are constantly making tiny adjustments to keep the aircraft stable without the pilot having to do anything. The pilot gives general commands about where to go, but the computers handle all the precise movements needed to keep the plane flying smoothly. The aircraft gathers information about flying conditions through special pitot-static sensing plates instead of the traditional pitot tubes found on most planes. Regular pitot tubes would stick out from the aircraft and show up on enemy radar, completely defeating the stealth design. These sensing plates measure things like airspeed and the angle of attack while staying completely flush with the aircraft's surface. The flight control system also includes both hydraulic and electrical components with multiple backup systems. So if one part fails, others can take over to keep the plane flying safely. Getting directional control on a stealth aircraft presented unique challenges because most traditional control methods would increase the radar signature. After testing various options, Northrop engineers settled on a combination of split brake rudders and differential thrust from the engines. This means the plane can change direction by using different power levels from its engines rather than relying entirely on visible control surfaces. Engine thrust became crucial not just for forward movement, but also for controlling how the aircraft pitches up and down and rolls from side to side. The B-2 has 4 pairs of control surfaces along the back edge of its wings, and different surfaces work at different times depending on flight conditions. Most of these surfaces operate throughout normal flight, but the inner elevons typically only activate during slow-speed situations like landing approaches. During takeoff, all the elevons stay drooped downward until the aircraft reaches sufficient airspeed. This prevents damage from ground contact and helps create the proper nose-down attitude needed for a successful takeoff sequence. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.